Daughter leaves mother with only 5 hens. 7 years later, her farm was worth millions. Martha Higgins watched the black car driving away down the dusty road, taking her only daughter far from that rural property where they had lived together for so many years. Samantha's cutting words still echoed in her ears like sharp blades, and the silence that remained felt heavier than all the storms she had ever faced. "You were always better at taking care of animals than people, Mom. So stay here with them," were the last words her daughter said to her before getting into the car next to her husband Ryan. Martha lowered her eyes to the small makeshift pen where 5 skinny hens were scratching among the corn kernels she had thrown on the dry ground. 2 of them couldn't even stand properly. They were so weak. The late afternoon sun beat hard on her aging face, but the tears running down her cheeks were as cold as the despair gripping her chest. At 50 years old, Martha found herself completely alone on that arid piece of land in the sticks of Kansas, with only a few dollars in her pocket and a property that barely produced enough to feed those sick birds. The wattle and daub house where she had raised Samantha was falling apart, with leaks in the roof and cracks in the walls that seemed to spread like the sorrow in her heart. "What am I going to do now?" she murmured to herself, sitting down on the packed dirt floor next to the pen. One of the hens, the smallest of all, approached her with unsteady steps. Martha reached out and stroked the disheveled feathers of the little animal, which seemed as lost as she was at that moment. It was as if they were both facing the same helplessness, the same uncertainty about tomorrow. The reason for the fight that had separated mother and daughter forever still throbbed like an open wound in Martha's memory. Samantha had met Ryan in the neighboring town, where she worked as a clerk at a clothing store. The young man had a degree in business administration and had big plans to live in the big city, far from that sticks town he considered backward and without prospects. From the start, Martha felt that relationship wouldn't work out, not because Ryan was a bad person, but because he clearly didn't understand the simple life they led there in the countryside. He always talked about opportunities in the big city, about how Samantha was wasting her potential in that God-forsaken place. "Mom, Ryan is right. There's no future for me here. Do you see any young person who stayed and made something of themselves?" Samantha had argued during one of the many discussions they had. "Daughter, not everyone needs to run off to be happy. Your father built this property with his own hands, and it was here that you grew up healthy and loved," Martha had replied, trying to make her daughter see the value of what they had. But Samantha had already made her decision. The wedding would be in the city, and then they would move to Chicago, where Ryan had gotten a job at an accounting firm. Martha was not invited to the ceremony. Her daughter said it would be better that way, to avoid more embarrassment. The property, where Martha now found herself alone, had been an inheritance from her deceased husband, John Higgins. He had passed away 3 years earlier, a victim of a sudden heart attack while fixing the back fence. Since then, Martha had been struggling to keep the place running, but the difficulties only increased. The drought of the past 2 years had severely damaged the crops, and she had neither the knowledge nor the resources to invest in improvements. John always took care of the administrative side and sales, while Martha took care of household chores and helped with the animals. When he left, she found herself lost amid bills, taxes, and negotiations she had never learned to handle. Samantha, who could have helped, was growing more distant by the day, obsessed with her plans to move away. "If only your father were here to tell me what to do," sighed Martha, looking at the sky that was beginning to darken. The hens seemed to sense her sadness and moved closer to the fence as if trying to offer some kind of comfort. Martha noticed that one of them, despite its thinness, had bright eyes and a more dignified posture than the others. It was a hen with reddish-brown feathers and small white spots on its neck. "You're different, aren't you, girl?" said Martha, reaching out to touch the bird. To her surprise, the hen did not pull away. On the contrary, it seemed to recognize the affection and let itself be petted. At that moment, Martha felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe it wasn't by chance that Samantha had left just those 5 hens. Maybe there was something there she still couldn't see. The first night alone was the hardest of all. Martha barely slept, haunted by the ghosts of the harsh words she had heard and the uncertainty of the future. She got up several times to check on the hens, fearing some predator might take advantage of the darkness to attack them. It was all she had now. In the morning, she discovered that the brown hen had laid an egg. It was small, but perfect. Martha held it in her hands as if it were the greatest treasure in the world. At that moment, an idea began to form in her mind. If she could keep the hens healthy and productive, maybe she could sell the eggs at the market in the neighboring town. In the following days, Martha threw herself headlong into caring for the birds. She searched through the old books John kept on animal husbandry, discovering feeding and management techniques she had never practiced before. She learned to make homemade feed by mixing corn, bran, and food scraps, stretching the few resources she had as far as possible. Mrs. Dorothy, a neighbor who lived a few miles away, showed up at the property a week after Samantha's departure. She was a 60-year-old woman, also a widow like Martha, who had always maintained a good relationship with the Higgins family. "Martha, dear, I heard Samantha left. How are you managing here all by yourself?" asked Dorothy with genuine concern. "I'm trying to keep things moving forward, Dorothy. It's not easy, but—" Martha hesitated, unsure how to express her feelings. "But nothing, woman. You can't stay here wearing yourself out alone. If you need anything, just call. And look, if you want, I can teach you a few things about chickens that I learned from my mother." Dorothy's offer was like a ray of sunshine in the middle of a storm. In the days that followed, the neighbor became a constant presence at the property, teaching Martha secrets about raising poultry that had been passed down through generations in her family. "Let me tell you something, Martha. A well-cared-for chicken isn't just an egg-laying animal. It's an investment that multiplies. My grandmother used to say that a happy chicken lays a golden egg." Dorothy taught as she watched the 5 birds scratch freely in the backyard. "What do you mean, Dorothy?" Martha asked, intrigued. "A free-range chicken fed on greens, with no stress, lays much better eggs than those kept in cages. The egg tastes better, is more nutritious, and some people pay good money for that, especially in the city." Dorothy also taught Martha how to spot signs of illness in the birds and how to treat them with home remedies. She showed her how to build a more suitable chicken coop using simple but effective materials. More importantly, she helped Martha believe that she had the ability to run that business on her own. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us beginners out. Now, continuing. With Dorothy's guidance, Martha managed to significantly improve the health of her chickens. Within 2 weeks, all of them were laying eggs regularly. The brown hen, which she had named Brave, proved especially productive, providing 1 egg a day without fail. "That Brave of yours is a champion, Martha. I've rarely seen such a good layer," Dorothy commented during one of her visits. "She really is special. It's like she understands when I talk to her," Martha replied, smiling for the first time in weeks. "You know, Martha, you should take some eggs to sell at the Saturday market in Hutchinson. I'm sure folks will appreciate the quality." Dorothy's suggestion planted a seed that began to germinate in Martha's mind. At the Hutchinson market, the nearest town, she could earn some extra money selling the eggs. With 5 hens laying regularly, she would have at least 20 to 25 eggs a week to sell. However, Martha had never sold anything at a market before. Shyness and lack of experience haunted her. How could she compete with seasoned traders who had been around that scene for years? What if nobody wanted to buy her eggs? "Dorothy, I don't know if I have the courage to go to the market. I've never sold anything in my life," Martha confessed, sharing her insecurities. "Martha, you raised a daughter almost on your own after John got sick like that. You took care of this property when he could no longer work. If that isn't courage, I don't know what is." Her friend's words struck deep in Martha's heart. It was true that she had faced very difficult situations throughout her life. Maybe it was time to trust more in her own abilities and less in her fears. The following Saturday, Martha gathered her courage and went to the Hutchinson market with a basket containing 20 fresh eggs. She arrived early, even before the hustle began, and looked for a discreet corner to set up. Her makeshift stall consisted of nothing more than a cloth spread on the ground and the eggs arranged in small groups. The first customers passed by without showing any interest. Martha was starting to regret coming when an elderly grey-haired woman approached her cloth. "Are these eggs fresh?" the woman asked, examining one against the light. "Yes, ma'am. Laid this week by my hens. They're free-range, fed on greens and homemade corn," Martha replied, trying to hide her nervousness. I'll take a dozen. How much are you charging?" Martha had calculated a price based on what she'd seen other sellers charging, but she hesitated when it came time to answer. She asked for a price slightly below the market average, afraid that no one would buy if she charged too much. The woman bought the 12 eggs and even praised the quality. That first customer gave Martha confidence, and she started approaching people passing by her improvised stall. Within 2 hours, she had sold all the eggs she had brought. The money from the sale wasn't much, but it represented something much bigger to Martha, proof that she could support herself through her own work. She returned home with a lighter heart and plans buzzing in her mind. "Dorothy, I sold everything, and people really liked the quality," Martha told her friend excitedly the next day. "I knew it would work. Now you need to think about increasing your flock. With 5 hens, you'll always have too few eggs to sell." The suggestion made sense, but Martha didn't have money to buy more birds. It was Dorothy who suggested a creative solution: use part of the eggs for hatching, letting the hens handle the breeding themselves. Brave seems to have maternal instincts. If you separate a few eggs and let her brood them, in a few months you'll have chicks, Dorothy explained. Martha decided to try the experiment. She separated 6 of Brave's eggs and put together a makeshift nest with straw and old rags. To her delight, the hen accepted brooding the eggs naturally, showing exceptional maternal behavior. While waiting for the chicks to hatch, Martha kept going to the market every Saturday. Her customer base started to grow, with people coming back specifically to buy her eggs. Some customers even praised the distinctive flavor, favorably comparing them to factory-farmed eggs. One day at the market, Martha met Mr. Arthur, a retired veterinarian who now lived in Hutchinson. He noticed the quality of the eggs she sold and struck up a conversation about raising chickens. "Young lady, your eggs have a very even and pretty shell. Your hens must be well fed," Mr. Arthur observed. "I try to take good care of them. I learned from a neighbor who knows her stuff," Martha replied modestly. "How many hens do you have?" 5, but I'm expecting some chicks to hatch." Mr. Arthur was impressed to learn that Martha got that quality from just 5 birds. He offered to visit her property and give some technical tips that could help even more. The retired veterinarian's visit marked a turning point in Martha's journey. Mr. Arthur was genuinely impressed by the care she gave the hens and the naturally healthy environment of the property. "Martha, you have a natural talent for this. Your hens are healthier than many I saw when I was still practicing," Mr. Arthur praised. "You really think so?" "I just do what I think is right for them. And you're absolutely right. Let me give you some tips that can help even more. For example, you can improve their feed by adding some specific ingredients." Mr. Arthur taught Martha about mineral supplements, preventive care, and reproductive management. He explained how to identify hens with greater genetic potential for laying and how to select them to improve the flock's productivity. "If you can keep this quality and increase the quantity, you could reach supply deals with restaurants and bigger markets," the veterinarian suggested. The idea of supplying commercial establishments had never crossed Martha's mind. It seemed too big and complicated for someone like her. But Mr. Arthur's words planted another seed in her ambitious mind. 3 weeks later, the chicks hatched. Out of the 6 eggs, 5 hatched perfectly, revealing small, healthy, active animals. Brave proved to be an exemplary mother, protecting and teaching the chicks with impressive dedication. "Look at that, Martha. 5 chicks at once," Dorothy celebrated when she saw the newborns. "Brave is really special. She seems to know exactly what to do with them," Martha observed, moved. The chicks grew quickly under the careful attention of Martha and the mother hen. Within a few weeks, they were scratching around the yard on their own, doubling the liveliness and joy of the property. Martha could feel that something was changing in her life. Over the months, Martha established a productive routine that took up all her time. She got up before dawn to tend the hens, prepare the homemade feed, and collect the eggs. 3 times a week, she went to the Hutchinson market and on other days she focused on improving the facilities and studying poultry farming. Mr. Arthur had lent her some technical books on raising poultry, and Martha discovered she had a knack for absorbing knowledge. She learned about basic genetics, animal nutrition, and sanitary management. Each new piece of information was immediately applied to her small endeavor. "Martha, you're becoming a real expert," Dorothy joked during one of her visits. "I like understanding how things work, and the more I learn, the better the result." Martha's dedication began to yield visible results. Her eggs became known at the market for their superior quality, and she started to have a loyal clientele that came specifically to buy them. Some customers even placed advance orders to make sure they wouldn't run out. One of those regular customers was Mrs. Beatrice, owner of a small bakery in Hutchinson. She had started using Martha's eggs in her cakes and breads and noticed a significant improvement in the flavor and texture of her products. "Martha, your eggs make all the difference in my dough. Customers are raving about them. Would you be interested in supplying me directly?" Mrs. Beatrice proposed. The proposal was a big leap for Martha. Direct supply meant guaranteed sales and a higher volume of business, but it also required a commitment to deliver a specific quantity regularly, something she wasn't sure she could manage yet. "How many eggs would you need per week?" Martha asked cautiously. "About 60, 70 eggs per week. Would that be possible?" Martha did quick mental calculations. With 10 hens producing, she could supply that amount and still have eggs to sell at the market. It was an opportunity she couldn't waste. "I think we can reach an agreement, Mrs. Beatrice." The informal contract with the bakery marked the beginning of a new phase for Martha. For the first time since she'd been on her own, she had a predictable income that allowed for medium-term planning. With the extra money, she was able to significantly improve the facilities for the hens. She built a larger, more functional chicken coop with proper nesting boxes and a protected exercise area. She invested in higher quality feed and basic equipment to make daily management easier. The property began to look more professional. Mr. Arthur, who had become an informal consultant, was impressed with the improvements. "Martha, you're turning this place into a real operation. Keep this up and soon you'll need to expand even more. Do you think I really have a future in this? Sometimes I'm afraid I'm dreaming too big." "Woman, you have everything you need: dedication, natural talent, and a willingness to learn. The market for quality products is growing, especially for eggs from free-range hens." The veterinarian's words gave Martha confidence to keep investing in her business. She began researching organic certifications and sustainable practices that could add value to her products. During a conversation with Dorothy, Martha learned that there was a state government program that offered rural credit for small producers. The information piqued her interest, although she still had reservations about taking on debt. "Dorothy, do you think I should look into this credit? I'm afraid of getting tangled up in financing." "Martha, the way you're running your business, I think it's worth at least getting informed. Sometimes you have to take a risk to grow." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, be sure to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, Martha decided to look into the Rural Credit Program. She went to the bank branch in Hutchinson, where she was received by the manager, Mr. Henderson, a middle-aged man who initially showed skepticism about a woman running a rural business on her own. "Do you have experience with commercial farming?" Mr. Henderson asked, flipping through some papers. "I've been selling eggs at the market and supplying a bakery for a year." "I started small, but it's working out," Martha replied, trying to sound confident. "How many birds do you have now?" 15 laying hens, plus some chicks growing up." Mr. Henderson jotted down the information with a doubtful look. To him, this seemed more like a hobby than a viable business to justify a bank loan. "I'll need to see some proof of income and a basic business plan." Martha left the bank a little discouraged. She didn't have formal proof of income since all sales were done informally. And as for the business plan, she didn't even really know what that meant. It was Mr. Arthur who helped her organize the necessary paperwork. Together, they put together a simple plan showing the growth in sales, the improvements already made, and projections for expanding the operation. "Martha, your numbers are much better than you think. You tripled production in a year and have regular customers." That's more than a lot of big companies can say, the vet encouraged. With the paperwork in order, Martha went back to the bank. This time, Mr. Henderson paid closer attention to the numbers presented. The consistency of sales and gradual growth impressed the manager positively. The numbers really are interesting. And what specifically do you plan to invest the credit in? Expanding the chicken coop, buying more birds, and improving infrastructure. I have the potential to triple my current production, Martha explained, growing more confident. After review, the bank approved a modest credit line, enough for the planned investments. Martha signed the contract with trembling hands, aware that she was taking on a serious commitment, but also a unique opportunity to grow. With the loan money, Martha implemented a planned expansion of her operation. She built a second chicken coop, larger and more modern than the first, capable of housing 50 birds. She bought 20 young hens of good lineage and invested in equipment that made daily management easier. The improvements soon showed in the results. Egg production increased significantly, allowing Martha to serve new customers beyond the bakery. 2 local restaurants started buying her eggs regularly, drawn by the superior quality. Dorothy kept a close eye on her friend's business growth, always offering support and practical advice. Martha, you're achieving what a lot of people only dream of. In 2 years, you went from nothing and built a real business. Sometimes I can't even believe what I've done. When Samantha left, I thought my life was over. Life has these surprises, doesn't it? Sometimes what seems like the end is just the beginning of something much better. Dorothy's words made Martha reflect on her journey. Her daughter's abandonment had been painful, but it had also forced her to discover abilities she didn't even know she had. As much as she still missed Samantha, she couldn't deny that she was more professionally fulfilled than she had ever been. An unexpected event would once again change the course of things. During the Hutchinson Fair, Martha was approached by an elegant woman in her 40s who was not a regular customer. "Sorry to bother you, my name is Claire Thompson. I own several restaurants in the area. I heard from my suppliers about the quality of your eggs," the woman introduced herself. "Nice to meet you, Claire. How can I help you?" Martha replied, curious. "I'm looking for a reliable supplier of organic eggs for my establishments. Are your eggs certified organic?" Martha was a little embarrassed to admit she didn't have formal certification, even though she followed natural practices in raising the birds. Claire explained that in the gourmet market, certification was essential to justify premium prices. "But from our conversation, I can see your operation already meets the necessary standards. It would just be a matter of formalizing the certification," explained Claire. "And how does this certification work?" "There are responsible agencies that inspect the property and the processes. If everything is in order, you receive the organic seal and can charge much higher prices for the eggs." This information sparked great interest in Martha. Claire left her contact information and promised to return when Martha had the certification. The meeting planted another ambitious seed in the breeder's mind. In the following days, Martha researched organic certification intensively. She discovered that the process was complex, but her operation already met most of the requirements. It would be necessary to adapt some practices and undergo periodic inspections. Mr. Arthur was instrumental in guiding Martha through the certification process. With his technical expertise, he helped her understand the regulations and prepare the property for inspections. "Martha, you're more prepared for this than you realize. Your operation is already naturally organic. It just needs to be formalized," the veterinarian reassured her. The certification process took a few months, but finally, Martha received the official organic seal. It was the credential she needed to soar higher in the specialized market. Claire kept her promise and returned as soon as she heard about the certification. She proposed an exclusive supply contract for her 3 restaurants, offering a price per egg that was double what Martha received in the regular market. "I need 200 eggs per week, delivered twice. Can you handle that?" asked Claire. Martha did the math quickly. With 50 hens laying, she would have enough eggs to fulfill the contract and still serve some local customers. It was an opportunity that would completely transform her business. "Yes, I can, Mrs. Thompson. When do you want to start?" The contract with the gourmet restaurants marked the beginning of a new era for Martha. Her eggs were now served in upscale establishments to customers who paid high prices for premium quality. It was almost surreal to think that it had all started with 5 scrawny hens. With her income substantially increased, Martha could invest in even bigger improvements. She hired a local helper, Toby, a 20-year-old boy who lived in the neighborhood and was unemployed. Having an employee gave her more time to dedicate to management and strategic planning. "Toby, you're going to help me with the daily care. I'll teach you everything I've learned, and you'll help me run this place properly," Martha explained to the new employee. "You can count on me, Mrs. Higgins. I've always liked dealing with animals, and what you've managed to do here is impressive." Having help allowed Martha to expand the operation even further. She built a 3rd chicken coop and increased the flock to 100 laying hens. The property began to look like a professional farm, very different from that nearly abandoned place where she had found herself years ago. The success of the business drew attention in the region. Martha was invited to give a talk on sustainable farming at a municipal agricultural fair. It was the first time someone had recognized her as an expert in something, and the experience was deeply rewarding. During the talk, Martha told her story of overcoming adversity, from the early days with only 5 hens to the thriving current business. The audience was moved by the account, and many farmers approached her afterward to ask for advice. "Mrs. Higgins, you're an example for all of us. You show that with dedication anything is possible," commented a young farmer. "The secret is to never give up and always seek to learn." I knew nothing about chickens and learned by doing, studying, and listening to advice from those who knew. The lecture led to invitations for other events and solidified Martha's reputation as an innovative producer. Her name began to circulate in technical and business circles across the region. One of the contacts made during the fair was with Mark Harrison, an agribusiness entrepreneur who became interested in the farming model developed by Martha. He reached out to her weeks later with an unexpected proposal. "Mrs. Higgins, I have a distribution network that serves supermarkets in several cities. Your organic eggs would have a guaranteed market if you could scale up production," Mark proposed. "How much of an increase are we talking about?" Martha asked cautiously. "To start, 1,000 eggs a week, but with potential to grow much more if it works out." The proposal was tempting, but also daunting. 1,000 eggs a week would require at least 200 laying hens, meaning she would have to double her current operation again. It was a leap that demanded significant investment and taking on greater risks. Martha asked for time to analyze the proposal. She consulted Mr. Arthur about the technical feasibility of the expansion and talked with Dorothy about the emotional aspects of the decision. "Martha, you've already proven you have the competence to handle this. The question is whether you want to take on the size of the commitment," Dorothy reflected. "It's just that I've always been afraid of growing too fast and not being able to keep up. But at the same time, this could be the opportunity of a lifetime." Mr. Arthur was more direct in his assessment. "Martha, technically you're prepared. You have the knowledge, the proper facilities, and a model that works. What you need to decide is whether you want to become a real businesswoman or keep being a small-scale producer." The veterinarian's observations struck at the heart of the matter. Martha needed to decide what kind of future she wanted for herself. She could continue with a small, comfortable operation, or bet big on an expansion that could turn her into a real businesswoman. After weeks of reflection, Martha decided to accept the challenge. She went back to the bank for a larger loan, this time with much more confidence in her abilities and projects. Mr. Henderson, the manager who had initially shown skepticism, now welcomed her as a preferred customer. "Mrs. Higgins, it's a pleasure to see you back. Your results have been exemplary. How can we help you this time? I need a larger loan to significantly expand the operation. I have a supply contract that requires 200 laying hens. The bank quickly approved a substantial line of credit based on Martha's positive track record and the consistency of her business. With the funds, she implemented the largest expansion yet. She built 2 additional chicken coops, each with a capacity for 100 birds. She hired 2 more employees and invested in automated equipment that made managing a larger flock easier. The property turned into a modern, efficient farm. The transition to large-scale production brought new challenges. Martha had to learn about people management, large-scale quality control, and distribution logistics. These were entirely new skills that required constant adaptation. Toby, who had become Martha's right-hand man, was promoted to field supervisor. She hired an accountant to handle the tax and administrative side, recognizing her limitations in that area. "Mrs. Higgins, you're becoming a real businesswoman," Dorothy joked during a visit to the farm. "Sometimes I can't even believe what this place has turned into. Remember when I only had 5 chickens? I sure do, and I also remember how you were struggling back then. Look at what you did with that pain. You turned it into strength to build all of this." Dorothy's words made Martha reflect on her journey. The abandonment by Samantha was still a wound that hadn't fully healed, but she had managed to turn that painful experience into motivation to build something extraordinary. The business with Mark Harrison thrived beyond expectations. The quality of Martha's organic eggs quickly won over supermarket consumers, generating growing demand. Within a few months, the businessman returned with even bigger expansion proposals. "Mrs. Higgins, your eggs are a hit in every city where we've introduced them. I have orders to expand into the Chicago metropolitan area," Mark informed her. "The metropolitan area, that's huge, isn't it?" "It is, but the potential matches. We're talking about supplying major supermarket chains, gourmet markets, high-end restaurants." The proposal represented a quantum leap in the size of the business. Serving the metropolitan area would require an operation with at least 500 laying hens and a complex logistics structure. Martha knew she was on the verge of a decision that would define her future. She could accept the challenge and become a large-scale entrepreneur, or refuse and stay at a more manageable but limited size. The decision came after a deep conversation with Mr. Arthur, who had become more than a technical consultant. He was a mentor and true friend. "Martha, you have the opportunity to build something truly big. But remember, the bigger it gets, the more complex it becomes. You need to be prepared for that." "Mr. Arthur, do you think I have the ability to run a business this size?" "I have absolute confidence. You've shown the ability to learn, adapt, and grow. But you'll need specialized help for matters that go beyond what anyone can handle alone." The advice was decisive. Martha accepted Mark's proposal, but on the condition that he help her properly structure the operation for the new level. Mark gladly agreed, seeing potential for a long-term partnership. Together, they drew up an expansion plan that included hiring a professional administrative manager, implementing stricter quality control systems, and creating a private brand for the organic eggs. "Mrs. Higgins, your eggs deserve a brand that conveys the quality and the story behind the product," Mark suggested. "What kind of brand?" "Something that tells your story of overcoming, but in an elegant and commercial way. Braveheart Eggs, in honor of that first special hen you told me about." The idea of the Braveheart Eggs brand deeply moved Martha. It was a way to honor that hen, which had been the symbol of her resilience in the toughest times and had become the foundation of an exceptional lineage. Implementing the new phase of the business took months of intense preparation. Martha had to learn about marketing, brand management, and large-scale distribution. She hired Christopher James, a recent graduate in business administration, as the general manager of the operation. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Christopher James brought modern management knowledge that perfectly complemented Martha's practical experience. Together, they implemented control systems that allowed them to monitor every aspect of production, from feeding the birds to delivering the eggs. "Mrs. Higgins, with these controls, we can guarantee that every egg that leaves here maintains the same quality standard," Christopher explained. "And is that important for the big clients?" "It's essential. To supply large supermarkets, we can't have any variation in quality. Every egg needs to be perfect." The professionalization of the operation was accompanied by exponential growth in sales. The brand Braveheart Eggs quickly gained market recognition, being associated with premium quality and environmental sustainability. Martha actively participated in all strategic decisions, but had learned to delegate routine operations to her team. This gave her time to dedicate herself to what she loved most: direct contact with the chickens and the constant improvement of breeding practices. The farm now employed 15 people from the local community, generating income and development for the region. Martha was proud to know that her success was benefiting other families. During an inspection visit from the organic certifier, the technician in charge made a comment that deeply moved Martha. "Mrs. Higgins, I rarely see an operation of this size that maintains such high animal welfare standards. You managed to grow without losing the essence of what you did when you were small. I've always tried to do things the right way, even when it meant spending more or working twice as hard. And that's exactly why your products have the exceptional quality they do." Professional recognition validated the choices Martha had made along her journey. She had never sacrificed quality for quantity, even when that would have been easier or more profitable in the short term. 5 years after starting with 5 chickens, Martha ran an operation valued at over $2 million. The farm produced thousands of eggs weekly, distributed to dozens of cities in Kansas and surrounding states. Her success caught the attention of the specialized media. An agribusiness magazine published a cover story about her journey, highlighting her as an example of female rural entrepreneurship. The article resonated nationally, bringing even more visibility to the Brave Heart Eggs brand. During the interview for the magazine, Martha was asked about her future plans. "Mrs. Higgins, what's the next step for your business?" "I want to keep growing, but without losing the quality that sets us apart. We're studying expanding into other organic products like free-range chicken." "And what about your personal life? Do you still keep in touch with your daughter?" The question about Samantha caught Martha off guard. It was a subject she rarely discussed publicly, but it remained an open wound in her heart. "My daughter made her choices and I made mine. I hope that one day she can understand that what I built here was also for her, even though she decided to follow another path." The answer was published in full, and it deeply touched the magazine's readers. Many sent letters of support and admiration, sharing their own experiences of family overcoming. Mark Harrison, who had become a close business partner, suggested that Martha consider franchising as a way to expand nationally. "Martha, your model works, and your brand has strength. We could teach other producers to replicate what you do under your supervision. But then wouldn't we lose quality control? Not if we do it right. You would set the standards, train the franchisees, and conduct regular audits. It would be a way to grow without losing the essence." The idea of franchising intrigued Martha, but also frightened her. Would it be possible to maintain the quality standards she had developed over the years in operations run by others? After months of studies and specialized consulting, Martha decided to implement a pilot franchising project. She carefully selected 3 producers in different regions, offering intensive training and ongoing support. The first franchisee was Silas, a young agronomist from Nebraska, whom Martha had met at an agricultural fair. He was impressed by her methods and asked to work as an intern for a few months before setting up his own unit. "Silas, you understand this isn't just about raising chickens, right? It's about doing it with excellence in every detail," emphasized Martha during the training. "I understand perfectly, Mrs. Higgins. What impresses me most is how you manage to maintain quality even while growing so much." The second franchisee was Gladys, a widow from New York who wanted to start a new life in the sticks after retirement. Her story reminded Martha of her own journey, which created a special connection between them. "Gladys, I know exactly what you're going through. When I started out, I also thought it was too late to begin again," Martha shared during the selection process. "Your story gave me the courage to try. If you made it with 5 chickens, I can give it a shot too." The third franchisee was a young couple from South Carolina, Arthur and Diane, who wanted to leave the big city to raise their kids in the countryside. They brought energy and tech know-how that nicely complemented Martha's teachings. The pilot franchise project was a success. All 3 units managed to replicate the quality standards Martha set, adapting to regional quirks. The model proved viable for larger expansion. With the franchise's success, Martha started getting offers from investors interested in buying a stake in her business. A private equity firm offered an impressive sum for 50% of the operation. "Martha, this offer would allow for very rapid national expansion. You'd have unlimited resources to grow," argued the representative from the investing firm. "But I'd lose control of what I've built, right?" "Not necessarily. You'd remain the majority shareholder and have operational autonomy. We'd just help with resources and financial expertise. Martha found herself at a crossroads again. Accepting the investment would mean abundant resources for growth, but it would also fundamentally change the nature of her business. She would go from being an independent entrepreneur to becoming a partner in a large corporate group. The decision came after long talks with her closest advisors. Mr. Arthur, now over 70, remained an important voice in her strategic choices. "Martha, you've already proven everything you needed to prove. You built an empire from nothing. Now it's a matter of deciding what kind of legacy you want to leave." "What do you mean, legacy? Do you want to be remembered as the woman who built a big business, or as the one who transformed the lives of hundreds of families through the knowledge she developed?" The vet's observation helped Martha clarify her true values. She realized that her greatest satisfaction didn't come from the size of the business or the financial figures involved, but from the positive impact she could generate in people's lives. Martha decided to turn down the investor's offer and focus on expansion through franchising. It was a way to grow while keeping control over the values and practices she considered essential. In the following years, the Brave Heart Eggs franchise network spread across the entire country. Martha traveled constantly to train new franchisees and audit existing operations. Her methodology was systematized into technical manuals that became industry benchmarks. The company had transformed into one of the largest organic egg producers in the United States, but Martha never lost direct contact with her original chickens. Every morning, before handling administrative matters, she would stop by the first chicken coop to observe the birds that still descended from the Brave bloodline. Brave had become a legendary chicken on the farm. Already old by the species standards, she was treated as a mascot and symbol of the company. Martha kept a detailed record of her genealogy, and many of the best breeders in the network came from her lineage. During a routine morning of care, Martha noticed that Brave was different. The hen, already over 7 years old, was showing signs of aging that indicated her days were coming to an end. "You were the mother of all this, my dear," Martha murmured, gently stroking the bird's feathers. Brave died naturally a few weeks later, sleeping peacefully in her favorite nest. Martha organized a small ceremony to mark the end of the life of the hen that had symbolized her own transformation. Brave's story was told in a special edition of the company newsletter, moving franchisees and employees across the country. Many sent messages of condolence, showing how the hen had become a powerful symbol for the entire Brave Heart Eggs community. 7 years had passed since that painful day when Samantha left, leaving Martha alone with 5 chickens. The farm was now worth many millions, employed hundreds of people, and had turned Martha into one of the most respected rural businesswomen in the country. But financial and professional success had not completely filled the void left by her daughter's absence. Martha kept waiting for a sign, an opportunity for reconciliation that never seemed to come. It was during an international agribusiness fair in New York that fate prepared an unexpected meeting. Martha was participating as a keynote speaker, telling her story of overcoming to an audience of over 1,000 people. "When my daughter left, leaving me alone with 5 chickens, I thought my life was over. Today I know it was just the beginning of the greatest adventure of my existence," Martha said during her presentation. In the audience, a woman in her 30s watched the lecture with tears in her eyes. Samantha had recognized her mother in the event program and decided to attend, driven by a mix of curiosity and remorse she had carried for years. Seeing the farm images in the presentation, Samantha could hardly believe the transformation that had occurred. The modest property where she grew up had become an impressive operation, and her mother was nationally recognized as an authority in her field. After the lecture, Samantha remained in the auditorium while other participants headed for coffee breaks. When Martha finished answering the last questions, mother and daughter found themselves face to face for the first time in 7 years. "Mom," Samantha said, her voice choked. Martha stood frozen for a few seconds, unable to believe she was seeing her daughter there. So many times she had imagined this moment, but never knew how she would react when it finally came. "Samantha, she managed to reply, tears already streaming down her face. I watched your entire lecture. I didn't know that you had achieved all this." Martha slowly approached her daughter, still processing the reality of the encounter. Samantha looked more mature, with the features of an adult woman that hadn't existed when she left. She wore elegant clothes and seemed to be doing well in life. "Are you okay? How have you been?" were the first questions Martha managed to formulate. "I'm fine, Mom. Ryan and we divorced 2 years ago. I live alone in Chicago now, work at a marketing firm." The news about the divorce surprised Martha, but she refrained from asking deeper questions at that first moment. There was so much to talk about, so many years of silence to break. "And you? I mean, you... Seeing what you've accomplished is impressive." Martha noticed how Samantha still kept a formal address, calling her you with a respectful tone. It was a sign of the distance that still existed between them, a barrier built by years of hurt and wounded pride. Want to come grab a coffee? We could talk a bit," Martha suggested, hesitant. Yes, I think that would be good." They left the convention center and found a quiet coffee shop nearby. The initial awkwardness gradually gave way to a more natural conversation, though still charged with unspoken words and repressed emotions. "Mom, I need to apologize for the things I said when I left. They were really harsh, and I know they hurt you." "Sweetheart, you were following your heart. I understand you wanted a different life. But it didn't have to be that way. It didn't have to be a complete break." Martha felt her heart race hearing her daughter's words of regret. It was something she had hoped for so long, but never knew if it would ever happen. Why didn't you ever reach out to me? In all these years?" Martha asked, finally voicing the question that tormented her most. Samantha looked down, clearly uncomfortable with the question. "Pride, Mom. Pure pride. The more time passed, the harder it got to make the first move. And after I saw your success in the press, I thought maybe you were better off without me." "Better off without you? Honey, no amount of wealth in the world is worth a daughter's smile. You have no idea how much I missed you all these days." The tears finally came for both of them. Years of hurt and misunderstandings began to dissolve in that conversation that should have happened long ago. "Mom, can I come visit the farm? I'd like to see what you've built in person." "Of course you can, sweetheart. The farm has always been your home too, even if you chose to leave it." The invitation was accepted with genuine emotion. Samantha promised to visit the property the following weekend, starting a reconciliation process that both wanted but neither had had the courage to begin. The week leading up to Samantha's visit was full of anxiety for Martha. She wanted her daughter to see the farm at its best, but at the same time feared that the material success might be interpreted as a way of showing she hadn't needed her. Dorothy, now nearly 70 but still sharp and present, helped Martha prepare emotionally for the meeting. "Martha, stop beating yourself up. Your daughter came back because she recognized her mistakes. Now it's time to build bridges, not dwell on the past." "But what if she thinks I did all this to prove something, or to hurt her?" "Nonsense. Anyone who hears your story will understand that you did all this to survive and grow. And if your own daughter can't see that, that's her problem, not yours." Dorothy's straightforward words helped Martha gain confidence to receive Samantha naturally, without excessive drama or resentment. Samantha arrived at the farm on a sunny Saturday morning. When her car appeared on the road, Martha was feeding the chickens in the first coop, as she had done every morning for 7 years. "Wow, Mom, this place is unrecognizable," was Samantha's first reaction as she got out of the car. The property was indeed transformed. What was once a semi-arid plot with makeshift structures was now a modern operation with well-designed coops, administrative offices, and even a visitor area for customers and students. "Do you want me to show you everything?" Martha offered, trying to hide her nervousness. "I do. I want to understand how you managed all this." Martha led Samantha through the entire farm, explaining each step of development and the innovations she had implemented. Samantha asked smart questions, showing genuine interest in the business her mother had built. "Mom, how many people work here now?" Samantha asked, seeing the movement of employees. "Here at the main farm, 15 direct employees. But counting all the franchises, that's over 200 families that depend on what started here." 200 families. That's a lot of responsibility. "Yeah, but it's also very rewarding to know that I managed to create so much honest work for people." During the visit, Samantha met some of the longest-serving employees, like Toby, who had witnessed the entire evolution of the operation. Their stories helped the daughter better understand the scale of what her mother had achieved. "Mrs. Samantha, your mother is a special person. When I started working here, I was just a kid with no future. Today I'm a supervisor, and I managed to buy my own house," Toby said, emotional. "And was she always like that, looking after everyone?" asked Samantha. "Always. I never saw Mrs. Martha treat one employee differently from another. She treats everyone with the same respect and affection she has for her chickens." Toby's observation touched Samantha deeply. It was exactly how she remembered her mother, a person who took care of everyone around her with unconditional dedication. At the end of the visit, Martha took Samantha to see the Brave Memorial, where she had created a small space dedicated to the hen that had symbolized the beginning of everything. "Was this brave?" asked Samantha, reading the commemorative plaque. "She was one of the 5 you left for me, the most special of all. She laid the first eggs I sold at the market." Samantha was moved to learn that one of the hens she had considered insignificant had become the symbol of the empire built by her mother. "Mom, I didn't know the chickens were important. To me, they were just 5 worthless animals." "Daughter, sometimes we don't know the value of something until we lose it or until we're forced to value it." The phrase, loaded with double meaning, didn't go unnoticed by Samantha. She understood that her mother wasn't just talking about chickens. At the end of the afternoon, the two sat on the porch of the main house, watching the movement of the birds in the chicken coops in the distance. It was a moment of peace that neither of them had experienced in 7 years. "Mom, I was wrong about a lot of things," said Samantha, breaking the silence. "What do you mean, honey?" "I thought staying here meant having no ambition, settling for little. But seeing what you've built, I understand that the problem wasn't the place, it was my limited vision of the possibilities." Martha felt her heart warm at her daughter's words. It was a recognition worth more than all the awards and certificates she had received over the years. "Honey, you weren't completely wrong. Back then, this place really didn't offer many opportunities for a young person. I only discovered my potential because I was forced by circumstances. But that doesn't justify the way I left here. It doesn't justify abandoning you when you needed support the most. Samantha, you were young and in love. It was natural to want to build your own life. My mistake was not being able to accept your choices." The dialogue continued into the night, with mother and daughter finally talking openly about hurts, regrets, and unmet expectations. It was a necessary catharsis that would allow a new relationship to be built between them. "Mom, can I ask a personal question?" said Samantha hesitantly. "Of course, honey, you can ask anything. Did you manage to be happy? I mean, fulfilled? Or was all this just a way to fill the time and forget the hurt?" The question was deep and required an honest answer. Martha reflected for a few moments before answering. "Daughter, I became the person I never thought I could be. I discovered abilities I didn't even know existed. I built something that benefits a lot of people. That gives me immense satisfaction, but there was always one thing missing to complete the happiness, having you by my side to share the achievements." Tears returned to both their eyes. It was the purest declaration of love a mother could make to a daughter, devoid of any resentment or expectation. "Mom, is it still possible to recover what we lost?" asked Samantha, her voice choked. "Honey, it's never too late to rebuild the love between a mother and a daughter. But we have to be realistic. We're different people than we were 7 years ago. We're going to have to get to know each other again." "I want that, Mom. I really want to recover our relationship." From that weekend on, Samantha began visiting the farm regularly. Initially, the visits lasted a few days, but gradually they became longer stays. The daughter started taking a genuine interest in the business and contributing ideas from her marketing experience. "Mum, you could make better use of the company's story and advertising campaigns. The journey of overcoming hardship is a very strong element for building a connection with consumers," Samantha suggested during a meeting with the marketing team. "Do you think people would be interested in that?" asked Martha. "I'm sure of it. People love stories of overcoming, especially when they involve honest work and persistence." Samantha's suggestion led to the creation of a new advertising campaign that told the story of brave heart eggs in a moving and inspiring way. The campaign was a success, further increasing brand recognition. Samantha's growing involvement in the business sparked speculation about a possible succession. Martha, now nearly 60, was beginning to think about the future of the company and the importance of having a well-structured legacy. "Samantha, would you be interested in taking a more active role in the management of the company?" Martha asked during a dinner. "Mom, I would love to, but I don't want you to think I came back out of financial interest. Honey, I know you didn't come back for money. You came back for love, and that's much more valuable. But the fact is, I need to start thinking about succession, and you're my only daughter." Samantha gradually accepted taking on responsibilities at the company. She started by overseeing the marketing and communications area, where her previous experience was most applicable. Over time, she expanded her duties to other operational areas. Samantha's presence brought renewed energy to the company. Her younger, more urban vision perfectly complemented Martha's rural experience, creating a powerful combination for business growth. Together, mother and daughter implemented innovations that took the company to a new level. They launched derivative products, such as organic powdered eggs and nutritional supplements. They expanded into international markets, exporting to neighboring countries. "Mum, look how far we've come. Who would have thought 5 scrawny chickens would turn into all this?" Samantha commented during the inauguration ceremony of a new production unit. "Honey, it wasn't the chickens that changed. It was us who changed through them." Martha's observation perfectly summed up the essence of her journey. The chickens had merely been the catalyst for a much greater transformation, the discovery of her own potential and the reclaiming of her daughter's love. Years later, when journalists asked Martha about the secret to her success, she always answered the same way. The secret wasn't in the chickens. It was in never giving up, even when everything seemed lost. And above all, in keeping your heart open to love, even when it takes a while to come back. Martha Higgins's story became an inspiration for thousands of women across the United States. Her journey proved that it's never too late to start over, that abandonment can turn into strength, and that true love between a mother and a daughter can overcome any adversity. The Brave Heart Eggs farm continued to grow, but Martha learned that the greatest treasure was not in the millions the business was worth. It was in the bright eyes of Samantha when she arrived for work every morning. It was in the rediscovered hugs. And above all, it was in the certainty that she had turned the biggest failure of her life into the greatest victory possible. At Brave's memorial, Martha kept a plaque with a phrase that summed up her philosophy of life. "Sometimes what seems like the end is just the beginning of our true story." It was a lesson she had learned painfully, but which she now shared with gratitude and hope. The property that was once a scene of abandonment and despair had become a symbol of overcoming and reconciliation. And Martha knew that the true wealth of her life was not measured in money, but in the possibility of having regained her daughter's love and having built something that would benefit future generations. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this story of overcoming and reconciliation? Leave in the comments your opinion about Martha and Samantha's journey. Which moment moved you the most? Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other inspiring stories like this one. Your participation is very important to us.